From translation, ISV International Standard Version, this 119th day of the year, today we are reading passages 2 Kings 23-25, 2 Kings chapter 23, verses 1 to 37. The king summoned all the elders of Judah and Jerusalem. The king went up to the house of the Lord, and with him went all the men of Judah and all the inhabitants of Jerusalem, as well as the priests, the prophets, and all the people, both small and great. He read in their hearing all the words of the book of the covenant that was found in the house of the Lord. The king stood by the pillar and made a covenant before the Lord, to follow the Lord and to keep his commandments and his testimonies and his statutes, with all his heart and all his soul, to carry out the words of this covenant that were written in this book. And he made all who were present in Jerusalem and Benjamin to stand with it. And the king commanded Hilkiah the high priest and the priests of the second order, and the doorkeepers, to bring out of the Lord's temple all the articles made for Baal, for the Asherah, and for all the host of heaven. He brought out the Asherah from the house of the Lord outside Jerusalem to the brook Kidron, and burned it at the brook Kidron, and beat it to dust, and threw its dust on the grave of the common people. He broke down the houses of the male cult prostitutes which were in the house of the Lord, where the women wove hangings for the Asherah. He also defiled the high places that were in front of Jerusalem, which were on the right of the Mount of Corruption, which Solomon king of Israel had built for Ashtoreth the abomination of the Sidonians, and for Chemosh the abomination of the Moabites, and for Milcom the abomination of the Ammonites. And he broke down the altars, and beat the Asherah poles and the carved images to powder, and cut down all the incense altars throughout all the land of Judah. He broke in pieces the altars that were at the entrance of the house of the Lord, at the entrance of the temple of the Lord, which were at the king's side. And he brought out the Asherah from the house of the Lord, outside Jerusalem, to the brook Kidron, and burned it at the brook Kidron, and beat it to dust, and threw its dust into the brook Kidron. The king defiled the high places that were east of Jerusalem, which were on the south side of the Mount of Corruption, which Solomon king of Israel had built for Ashtoreth the abomination of the Sidonians, and for Chemosh the abomination of the Moabites, and for Milcom the abomination of the Ammonites. He broke in pieces the pillars, and cut down the Asherah poles, and beat the carved images to powder, and he burned all the Asherah poles throughout all the land of Judah. Moreover, he broke down the altar at Bethel, the high place that Jeroboam the son of Nebat, who made Israel to sin, had made. Both the altar and the high place he broke down in pieces, and he burned the high place and beat it to powder, and burned the Asherah pole. As Josiah turned, he saw the tombs that were there on the mountain. And he sent and took the bones out of the tombs and burned them on the altar, and defiled it, according to the word of the Lord that the man of God proclaimed, who had proclaimed these things when Jeroboam stood by the altar at the feast. Then he said, "What is that monument that I see?" And the men of the city told him, "It is the tomb of the man of God who came from Judah, and proclaimed these things that you have done against the altar at Bethel." And he said, "Let him be, let no man move his bones." So they let his bones remain, with the bones of the prophet who came out of Samaria. And all the houses of the high places that were in the cities of Samaria, which the kings of Israel had made to provoke the Lord to anger, Josiah removed, and he did to them just as he had done at Bethel. And he slew all the priests of the high places who were there on the altars, and burned human bones on them. Then he commanded all the people, saying, "Keep the Passover to the Lord your God, as it is written in this book of the covenant." For no such Passover had been kept since the days of the judges who judged Israel, or during all the days of the kings of Israel or the kings of Judah. But in the 18th year of King Josiah, this Passover was kept to the Lord in Jerusalem. Moreover, Josiah removed the mediums, and the necromancers, and the household gods and the idols, and all the abominations that were seen in the land of Judah and in Jerusalem, that he might perform the words of the law that were written in the book that Hilkiah the priest found in the house of the Lord. Before him there was no king like him, who turned to the Lord with all his heart and with all his soul and with all his might, according to all the law of Moses, nor did any like him arise after him. Still, the Lord did not turn from the fierceness of his great wrath, with which his anger burned against Judah, because of all the provocations with which Manasseh had provoked him. And the Lord said, "I will remove Judah also out of my sight, as I have removed Israel, and I will cast off this city Jerusalem which I have chosen, and the house of which I said, my name shall be there." Now the rest of the acts of Josiah, and all that he did, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Judah? In his days Pharaoh Necho king of Egypt went up to the king of Assyria to the river Euphrates. King Josiah went to meet him, and he slew him at Megiddo when he saw him. And his servants carried him dead in a chariot from Megiddo, and brought him to Jerusalem, and buried him in his own tomb. And the people of the land took Jehoahaz the son of Josiah, and anointed him, and made him king in his father's place. Jehoahaz was 23 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 3 months in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Hamutal, the daughter of Jeremiah of Libnah, and he did what was evil in the sight of the Lord, according to all that his fathers had done. And Pharaoh Necho put him in bonds at Riblah in the land of Hamath, that he might not reign in Jerusalem, and laid on the land a tribute of 100 talents of silver and a talent of gold. And Pharaoh Necho made Eliakim the son of Josiah king in the place of Josiah his father, and changed his name to Jehoiakim. But he took Jehoahaz, and he went to Egypt, and he died there. Jehoiakim gave the silver and the gold to Pharaoh, but he taxed the land to give the money according to the command of Pharaoh. He exacted the silver and the gold of the people of the land, from the rich among them, to give it to Pharaoh Necho. Jehoiakim was 25 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 11 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Zebudah the daughter of Pedaiah of Rumah, and he did what was evil in the sight of the Lord, according to all that his fathers had done. 2 Kings chapter 24, verses 1 to 20. In his days Nebuchadnezzar king of Babylon came up, and Jehoiakim became his servant for 3 years. Then he turned and rebelled against him. And the Lord sent against him bands of the Chaldeans, and bands of the Syrians, and bands of the Moabites, and bands of the Ammonites, and sent them against Judah to destroy it, according to the word of the Lord which he spoke by his servants the prophets. Surely this came upon Judah at the command of the Lord, to remove them from his sight, because of the sins of Manasseh, according to all that he had done, and also for the innocent blood that he had shed. For he had filled Jerusalem with innocent blood, and the Lord would not pardon. Now the rest of the acts of Jehoiakim and all that he did, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Judah? Jehoiakim slept with his fathers, and Jehoiachin his son reigned in his place. And the king of Egypt did not come again out of his land, for the king of Babylon had taken all that belonged to the king of Egypt from the brook of Egypt to the river Euphrates. Jehoiachin was 18 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 3 months in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Nehushta the daughter of Elnathan of Jerusalem. And he did what was evil in the sight of the Lord, according to all that his father had done. At that time the servants of Nebuchadnezzar king of Babylon came up against Jerusalem, and the city was besieged. And Nebuchadnezzar king of Babylon came to the city, while his servants were besieging it. And Jehoiachin the king of Judah gave himself up to the king of Babylon, he and his mother and his servants, his captains and his officials. And the king of Babylon took him in the 8th year of his reign. And he carried out from there all the treasures of the house of the Lord, and the treasures of the king's house, and cut in pieces all the vessels of gold, which Solomon king of Israel had made in the temple of the Lord, as the Lord had declared. He carried away all Jerusalem, and all the officials, and all the mighty men of valor, 10,000 captives, and all the craftsmen and the smiths. None remained, except the poorest people of the land, and he carried away Jehoiachin to Babylon. The king of Babylon also took out of Jerusalem all the treasures of the house of the Lord, and the treasures of the king's house, and cut in pieces all the vessels of gold, which Solomon king of Israel had made in the temple of the Lord. The king also took away all the men of valor, 7,000, and the craftsmen and the smiths, 1,000, all of them strong and fit for war, and none remained, except the poorest people of the land. And the king of Babylon made Mattaniah, Jehoiachin's uncle, king in his place, and changed his name to Zedekiah. Zedekiah was 21 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 11 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Hamutal, the daughter of Jeremiah of Libnah. And he did what was evil in the sight of the Lord, according to all that Jehoiakim had done. For through the anger of the Lord it came to pass in Jerusalem and Judah, until he had cast them out from his presence. And Zedekiah rebelled against the king of Babylon. 2 Kings chapter 25, verses 1 to 30. And in the 9th year of his reign, in the 10th month, on the 10th day of the month, Nebuchadnezzar king of Babylon came, he and all his army, against Jerusalem, and besieged it. In the 11th year of King Zedekiah, in the 4th month, on the 9th day of the month, the city was breached. And all the princes of the king of Babylon came in and sat in the middle gate, Nergal-Sharezer, Samganebo, Sarsechim, Rabsaris, Nergal-Sharezer, Rabmag, with all the rest of the princes of the king of Babylon. And when Zedekiah king of Judah and all the soldiers saw them, they fled by night from the city by way of the king's garden, through the gate between the 2 walls, and he went out toward the Arabah. But the army of the Chaldeans pursued the king, and overtook Zedekiah in the plains of Jericho, and all his army was scattered from him. Then they took the king and brought him up to the king of Babylon at Riblah, and they passed sentence on him. They slaughtered the sons of Zedekiah before his eyes, and then put out the eyes of Zedekiah and bound him in fetters, and took him to Babylon. And in the 5th month, on the 7th day of the month, which was the 19th year of King Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon. Nebuzaradan, the captain of the bodyguard, a servant of the king of Babylon, came to Jerusalem. And he burned the house of the Lord, and the king's house, and all the houses of Jerusalem, and every great house he burned down. And all the army of the Chaldeans, who were with the captain of the guard, broke down the walls of Jerusalem all around. And the rest of the people who were left in the city, and the deserters who had deserted to the king of Babylon, and the rest of the multitude, Nebuzaradan the captain of the guard carried away captive. But the captain of the guard left some of the poorest of the land to be vinedressers and ploughmen. And the pillars of bronze that were in the house of the Lord, and the stands and the bronze sea that were in the house of the Lord, the Chaldeans broke in pieces, and carried away all the bronze to Babylon. And they took away the pots, and the shovels, and the snuffers, and the basins, and the spoons, and all the vessels of bronze which were used for service. And the 2 pillars, the 1 sea, and the stands which Solomon had made for the house of the Lord, the bronze of all these vessels was without weight. The height of the 1 pillar was 18 cubits, and upon it was a capital of bronze. The height of the capital was 3 cubits, and the network and the pomegranates upon the capital all around were of bronze. And the 2nd pillar had the same, with pomegranates. And the captain of the guard took Seraiah the chief priest, and Zephaniah the 2nd priest, and the 3 keepers of the threshold. And out of the city he took an officer who was over the men of war, and 5 men of the kings who were found in the city, and the secretary of the captain of the army, who mustered the people of the land, and 60 men of the people of the land who were found in the city. And Nebuzaradan the captain of the guard took them, and brought them to the king of Babylon at Riblah. And the captain of the guard took Seraiah the chief priest, and Zephaniah the 2nd priest, and the 3 keepers of the threshold. And out of the city he took an officer who was over the men of war, and 5 men of the kings who were found in the city, and the secretary of the captain of the army, who mustered the people of the land, and 60 men of the people of the land who were found in the city, of those who were not put to death with the rest. But over the people who remained in the land of Judah, Nebuchadnezzar king of Babylon made Gedaliah the son of Ahikam, the son of Shaphan, governor. And when all the captains of the armies and their men heard that the king of Babylon had made Gedaliah governor, they came to Gedaliah at Mizpah, to Ishmael the son of Nethaniah, and Johanan the son of Kaariah, and Seraiah the son of Tanhumeth the Netophathite, and Jaazaniah the son of a Markathite, they and their men. And Gedaliah swore to them and to their men, saying, Do not be afraid of the servants of the Chaldeans. Dwell in the land and serve the king of Babylon, and it shall be well with you. But in the 7th month, Ishmael the son of Nethaniah, the son of Elishama of the royal family, came with 10 men and struck down Gedaliah, and put him to death along with the Jews and the Chaldeans who were with him at Mizpah. Then all the people, both small and great, and the captains of the armies, arose and went to Egypt, for they were afraid of the Chaldeans. And in the 37th year of the exile of Jehoiachin king of Judah, in the 12th month, on the 27th day of the month, evil Merodach king of Babylon, in the year that he began to reign, graciously lifted up the head of Jehoiachin king of Judah, and brought him out of prison. And he spoke kindly to him, and gave him a seat above the seats of the kings who were with him in Babylon. So Jehoiachin changed his prison garments, and he ate bread regularly before the king all the days of his life. And his allowance was a regular allowance given him by the king of Babylon, each day a portion until the day of his death, all the days of his life.